nor should every election require us to abandon one national vision and begin another. Professor has told us nations don't develop by accident. It has to be intentional, deliberate, planned. Nations that achieve lasting prosperity succeed because they sustain a common purpose across decades, even as administrations change. Kenya must cultivate that same discipline. We must think beyond electoral cycles, sustain what works, improve what can be made better, and build a national consensus around our long-term aspirations. I have said that we have done so much to get our country's economy on the rails. And 3 years ago is so fresh in my mind when we sat in a room called Room 6 here with colleagues and friends, including David and my Council of Advisors. And that the situation then was very different from the situation today. In that room, 3.5 years ago, we were grappling with a $2 billion debt that was threatening to torpedo our country. Today here, we're discussing the National Infrastructure Fund, which has $2.7 billion cash, not debt. That, in my opinion, is significant. Also, when I had a conversation with my predecessor, and he talked to me about continuity, I remember when we prepared the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, and I am very proud about the manifesto that we wrote. Sometimes I ask myself how we managed to write such a manifesto. And I want to thank my predecessor, President Uhuru Kenyatta. He gave me leave of absence for like 2 years. And I used that time to write this manifesto. With David and colleagues, we sat in my office in Karen and we went through. And most of what is in that manifesto has a huge element of continuity. Whether it is on education, on health, on housing, on agriculture, it has a big reflection on what we had tried to do in Jubilee under President Uhuru. We remember very well that the foundation was laid on our education. First president of Kenya laid the foundation on matters education. The second president expanded education, created more institutions, additional universities. President Mwai Kibaki came with universal primary education. President Kenyatta told us effectively that we must have 100% transition. And it has been my responsibility to make sure that when we have 100% transition, we have the classrooms. That's why we built 23,000 classrooms to eliminate the gaps that were there. We must have enough teachers. That's why we've hired 100,000 teachers. And I want to say we have worked on the university funding model now, or higher education funding model for that matter. And because we have members of parliament here, including the chair of education, Mr. Meli here, that now we have in parliament the final version of how we are going to make higher education universal. Finally, it will not matter the background of any child in Kenya. It will matter how good they are only. And going into the future, I know we have been trying to grapple with how do we fund our higher education in colleges, in our Kenya medical training centers, and in our universities. We tried the differentiated model. I think the vice chancellors here know it didn't work because it made most of our universities almost close down. Because while we promised 80% funding, we went down to 40%, and most universities suffered. We have worked on what we thought was equity, where we said parents will contribute a small portion, we will give a portion of loan, we will give a portion of scholarship. That creates equity, but it's not good enough. Now we are moving to universal under the amendments we have taken to Parliament. So going forward, any university, any student, so long as they have passed their exam and they have been placed in a college or a university, each one of them will get full funding for their higher education. It will be the choice of parents if they want to pay. But if parents don't want to pay, we now have a model that will pay for every child. And we are doing it because we want to be deliberate. Countries that are ahead of us, that we were together, had high quality education. Education was a central pillar. My team tells me that education makes us equal and has no equal. Do you remember that phrase somewhere? That is where we are taking this. And I want to implore on Parliament to expedite the amendments to the Higher Education Loans Board so that beginning September, we can make sure that any child, because we have incidences, for example, where a child from an underprivileged family who qualifies to do medicine fails to do medicine because their parents cannot afford to pay the household contribution and have to change to go and do a different course. We want to stop that. We want to make sure that if a child qualifies to do engineering or medicine, funding does not deter them from achieving their goal. That the government of Kenya must be able to support every child. And on and on. As government, we shall now study this proposal carefully. We shall engage with its recommendations, consult widely, reflect on the ideas this proposal advances. And once that process has been concluded, I will communicate the way forward as we shape Kenya's next long-term national vision. And as we undertake that process, I also invite all the stakeholders represented here today to study this proposal carefully and engage constructively with the ideas it advances. I want to encourage you to carry this conversation into our universities, research institutions, businesses in our counties, chair of Council of Governors, professional associations, places of worship, and in our communities and villages. The next chapter of Kenya's development cannot be written by government. It must be shaped by the collective wisdom, experience, and participation of the Kenyan people. Today's ceremony, therefore, does not mark the end, but the beginning of a process. Let us approach this task with confidence, humility, and a shared purpose, determined to leave to the future generations not merely a stable economy, but a stronger nation. I have listened to the good professors who spoke here, and as I continue to listen to them and their perspectives and where we've come from and how many have borrowed ideas from us, used those ideas to do better than us, it calls upon us as a people now to imagine the future we are all looking towards and to do the things that will never again make us drop the ball. And I must speak specifically to the people sitting here and those outside here who are leaders. You know, the responsibility, friends. I know we have tried to give many explanations on why we haven't moved as we should or as we expected. The biggest challenge in my reflection is that leadership must play a very central role. Political leaders, business leaders, civil society leaders, professional leaders, all leaders, religious leaders, we must all bring our leadership to bear for us to move this country to the next level. And we must own up that it is us. And that is why I keep saying, I will lead from the front as much as is practically possible for me. I will not try to hide behind, maybe so-and-so, maybe this was not. Because what we have achieved today in the last 3 years has not been easy. I had many opportunities to back down and to say, okay, it's become difficult. The courts have decided. The people have said something different. Some groups have pushed back. But you see, together, we have moved. And I want to appreciate that Parliament has made a huge contribution. The courts have assisted us to create a better future. I remember on housing, for example, the court suggested to us that please go and do a proper law. And we went and did a proper law. So they have made a contribution towards where we are going. The people gave their views, and everybody has come together. And that is why we are implementing that process. So it takes leadership from across sectors, for us to be able to move forward. You have said, Professor Kanyinga, that, you know, we were better than China in 1981, 82, 83. I mean, that is so recent. Every one of us here was born by then, right? Just imagine that. That China was just a, you know, country poorer than us. How many years ago? 30 years ago. Look at where they are. You know? So when we say that this great country of ours can become a first world country in our generation, it is doable. Play your part, as Anyang Nyong'o told us. It is doable, play your part. Everybody must play their part. And we must believe in ourselves. You know, we must believe. The challenge, you know, that I come across with many people in leadership positions is that they have given up. You know, they're just there, you know, telling us how impossible things are, how others have tried and failed, how this has been tried and failed. So what the hell are you doing if you have no energy to move things to the next level? Please exit. Get out of the way. You're causing a jam. Honestly, you know? I mean, if you have no energy to move anything anywhere, you know, you're just a stumbling block, you are, you know? So really, we must believe in ourselves, and we must believe in a greater Kenya than the one we have today.